One legend to a college football Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest coach of all time. A man who has won how many of these?
7?
7? 7 of these things?
I only remember the 3 we lost.
Okay. Could have won 10. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Saban.
Hey, Coach.
Coach, how you doing, boss?
Doing great, man. How are you?
So you said you lost 3. So you've won 7, lost 3. You've been at 10 of these. I talked to Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day yesterday, I believe. Was that yesterday morning? Yes.
Yeah.
Both very comfortable. Felt like they were both very, very comfortable, both very loose. What do you think they're trying to kind of say to their teams at this moment? Is hey, everything's the same? Or how do you think the coaches are kind of feeling in this moment here, just hours away from the Natty?
Well, I think one of the things that I always tried to do was how do you get the team to manage the disruptions of a game like this? Because players get exposed to things they are not used to being exposed to, more press conference, more media, more attention.
Peter Herbstreit turnaround.
And then the second thing is both teams just came off of big wins. So how do you sustain that and not have, the players, feel a little relief syndrome like I'm entitled to having a little time off here, let's take it easy, because you got to restart it and you got to get ready to play the next game. And I always told the players, look, when you play in a national championship game, you got to assume when you start preparation that you're playing against the best player you ever played against, and that's how you got to get ready to prepare for this game so you can play your best to dominate your box. And it's still keeping it simple, keeping it simple. I have these coaches calling me and say, how'd you get your team ready to play a national championship game? Well, you just played a big game last week. Mm-hmm. How'd you get your team ready to play that game? Because if there was a better way to do it, you'd have done it last week.
Yeah, we should be doing this all season, not just one game.
Players like routine. You guys played. I mean, you like routine. You like to know when you come in on Monday, this is what's going to happen. When you come in on Wednesday, this is what's going to happen. So if you change that routine, you're just acting and making the players think that they don't have confidence in the way they did it before.
Yeah, and I believe that was a big report yesterday. I don't know if it was Molly or Holly I saw on SportsCenter that basically said there's only one voice talking to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish team, and it's Marcus Freeman. Because a lot of people maybe assume outside, like, hey, let's bring in somebody to come speak to the team. It's a big game. Marcus Freeman, to your point, is like, this is just, hey, how do you feel about this particular year and how it's gone? You got to win 4 big games to win the national championship. You just talked about it. The Ohio State team are Cotton Bowl champs, Rose Bowl champs, and they beat the hell out of the SEC. They're Civil War champs. Yeah. That's just in this one playoff. And then Marcus Freeman has won more bowl games at Notre Dame than Brian Kelly did in his entire career at Notre Dame just this year. You talk about the massive games. Are we going to inevitably get the right team because these teams have to show up in these massive games time after time? This is a lot to ask a team, I think. Show up 4 straight times against the best in the country.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot like the NFL playoffs. The best team doesn't always win the game. You got circumstances around it. You got turnovers. You got people getting hurt. Like Notre Dame's probably not at full strength for this game. They're wore down, beat up, got some guys out. Mm-hmm. So it's not always going to turn out that way, but that's why you play a tournament. You got to win the tournament. It's not about just the best team winning, as you got to win the tournament. So who has the most resiliency,
That's on me.
To do that?
I had resiliency there because I just dumped water all over myself as you were looking. That was a very embarrassing moment.
You covered it up nicely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think people saw me probably just drool all over myself. But yeah, you got to show up. You got to get your team ready to go. AJ has a question for you, Coach.
Coach, you mentioned I don't want to bring up any bad memories, but you said you lost 3 of these national championship games. When you went and you self-scouted those losses, were you able to pinpoint anything that you would have changed going back if you could do that, or say the next year if you got back that you realize, okay, this is a speed bump that we don't need to, we got to figure out to not do that again?
Well, I think each of them were different. I think only one of those games did we really get beat in. When we played out in San Jose against Clemson, we just got beat. But we had bad circumstances in the game. We had to play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. We had an 8-day turnaround to get to California. A lot of travel, a lot of disruption in practice. We got out there, it was raining, there was no place to practice indoors. So, and we didn't handle those disruptions.
How pissed for you? You were pissed about this whole thing?
Oh.
No indoor facility?
No. That's why I think that these games should always be played at bowl sites. Because bowl sites have the facilities because they're used to accommodating teams. We played in San Jose, they weren't used to accommodating a team. no disrespect to Indianapolis, but when we played Georgia in Indianapolis, they weren't used to accommodating.
Pretty disrespectful.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Pretty disrespectful. It was
they
cold
weren't
as
ready.
shit,
They
dude.
weren't
wasn't it?
It was cold as hell, and we had to go practice in your Indianapolis Colts facility, which may be
Beautiful.
I don't know what it's like now, but it wasn't really very nice.
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry, we like gritty
Jefferson.
football. We like gritty football.
Spit
over
on
there.
Shite, spit, coach. It was shite.
No, but to answer your question, AJ, yeah, there were always things that we didn't do well in the game. And in some of the games, I mean, like we lost to Clemson on the last play of the game, I think in 2015 or 16. I mean, it was two great teams. I mean, we covered them and they caught it anyway and they scored. I mean, it was just a great game and we played a really good game. We just lost.
That happens in football. Could potentially happen tonight. I think tonight's game could go any way. Do you agree with that? I think there could be a buzzsaw. I think it could come down to the last second. I think there could be a massive upset. I have no clue how tonight's going to go, strictly because these teams have had to show up in massive games already 3 times,
right.
and they've both proven it. What is your kind of judge on how tonight goes? Anyway?
Well, I think who can play their game? Which team allows the other team to play their game? You know, if Notre Dame's going to win the game, they're going to have to play ugly. You know, they can't get in a 3-point shootout if it's a basketball game, you know, with Ohio State to make explosive plays to win the game because Ohio State has too many weapons. But if they can make the game ugly, kind of like Michigan did, you know, they ran the ball, they kept it away from Ohio State, they made the plays they needed made, they got, you know, get some turnovers, play good defense, don't let them get explosive plays. I think anybody can win the game, but I think the team that's going to win is going to be able to play their game.
Their identity.
Which
has been
got
proven
them
here already. Both
right.
of their identities have been proven. You think about Ohio State, you talk about explosives. That has become like the stat of this football season, both in college and in the NFL. Who can stop explosives and who can make explosives. This Ohio State team makes explosives on offense and on defense, and they stop them. And then Notre Dame has been able to keep everybody in a phone booth. I'm very, very pumped. I asked Marcus Freeman yesterday, I said, for you guys to win, what needs to happen? And he immediately said, we need to run the ball, we need to stop the run. I mean, that is what we need to do. Was not scared to say it at all. That is who we are. That is how we're going to win. And I think Ryan Day knew exactly who they were, too. 2 teams that know who they are coming in here.
Yep.
Very excited about it. D-Bud has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, you've been in so many of these huge games, and I'm sure most people would assume you don't have nerves coming into it. What were your nerves like coming into these huge games? And I know as a player, like that first hit or first coverage rep may be a target, then it kind of settles down and turns into just football. How are your nerves coming into big games like this, and then kind of what settled you once the game kind of got going?
Yeah, well, I think I had nerves going into every game. And sometimes I was more nervous about the games that we were supposed to win. You know, like when you're a big favorite, but you're playing a pretty good team, and you know your team's probably not looking at the game like you need to. But I think to ignore anxiety, I think all players and all coaches have anxiety when you win the games like this. And I always thought as a coach the most important thing I needed to do was manage that anxiety, because that anxiety was not going to help you perform well. And to keep things simple, play in, play out, do your job, dominate your box, don't worry about the scoreboard, all those kinds of things kind of minimize anxiety, because everybody wants to win. And can we focus on doing the things that we need to do to win? That was what I always tried to promote to the players. And I didn't want to make them think that I was anxious, because if they saw me nervous and anxious, then that means I don't believe in them.
Trickles down, yep.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows and can feel it. Even your assistant coaches. Your assistant coaches can't be nervous either, because then they think, oh, we don't have enough. We can't get the job done. You listen to music before the game? What'd you do? Did you listen to music?
I never listened to music. I kind of just thought things through. I did a little stretching.
Oh, really? Yoga?
You know,
You're a yoga guy?
Stretch it out.
No, yoga guy, but I try to keep busy. But I always had, I made notes, of what I was going to say to the team relative to what I'd said to them the day before, what I was going to say to them at halftime. I always had notes on what do I say if we win, what do I say if we lose. I mean, I was anticipating what was going to happen so that we didn't have to respond in spur of the moment type things.
You ever break any headsets at national championship games? Feels like a perfect setting to go ahead and put one of those through the ground.
Well, I broke so many I can't remember the specifics of when they happened, but
had to. Tone has a question for you.
Coach, nobody runs more man-to-man than this Notre Dame defense, and Al Golden's been asked a ton about it this week, if they are going to continue to do that against these Ohio State wide receivers that are very, very good. would you, in that situation, like, would you go out doing what you do the whole season, do what you do best, or would you play more zone because of how these wide receivers are gifted athletically and just who they are?
Well, I think that, yeah, you want to be who you are, but you also want to look at what the other team does technically, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what can we do to take that away. And I think one of the things that, like, the thing that we played a lot, and people think as soon as you say man-to-man, that means you got a middle-of-the-field safety and everybody's kind of locked up outside. But we actually played a lot of split safety man-to-man, all right, which is what Texas did, last week, in the game.
With Taff or whatever his name was.
Yeah, where you got two deep safeties, but they're not playing half-field coverage. They're still involved in the run to some degree, but you can take and say, all right, we're going to double number 4. All right, we're going to double the guy in the slot, but you still got too high. You're not always playing middle of the field coverage. I think when you play middle of the field coverage and you got great wideouts out here, your cats better be better than their cats, because you're going to give up. That's the toughest thing in ball for the defensive back, to be able to play all those balls and play man-to-man short and deep and not give up explosive plays, which is exactly what we've been talking about. But, to that point, people always think about turnovers, and we did a thing last week on turnovers and the number one statistic and outcomes of games, but the second most compelling statistic and outcomes of games is your turnover ratio and your turnover margin, not when it comes to turnovers, but your ratio in explosive plays. How many did you make and how many did you give up?
It's the stat of the year.
Yes.
Especially with how college ball and the NFL it's like cyclical. Came back to like power football. If you were able to open a team up, you were going to win the game. Last question about what's happening tonight before Connor pivots away and into the NFL conversation. Jeremiah Smith, this guy's special, man. He didn't get the rock a lot in the semifinal against Texas because I think of what you were talking about with the shade. And then they just basically said, all right, we'll take Ibuka, Henderson, Judkins, also G. Scott Jr., and great name tight end from Ohio State. Kazmarek, great name. He said, we'll just use all. Chip was like, cool. You want to take him out? We'll play 11 or 10 on 9, basically, is what we'll do, because of what you're doing. In the modern world that we're in, he's going to have to get the ball right. I was thinking about this because, Jeremiah, I know who your cousin is, Geno Smith, West Virginia legend.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. They don't want to get you the ball there?
Okay.
What's that?
What are you doing? You're lobbying?
I see where you're going here.
No.
Come on, Gino.
Let's not even say West Virginia, but let's just say the amount of people in college ball that immediately afterwards will be like, they don't want to give you the ball there. That's the world we're in right now. And Jeremiah's best football player in the country. I mean, that is by far, and he still has to play 2 more years of college ball. It's like, is that something that plays into Chip Kelly's mindset? Like, we got to feed this guy just to keep him happy? Or how do you feel that gets treated? And is Jeremiah Smith going to get his plays anyways, regardless of it?
Well, I don't think there's any question if you're the offensive coordinator, and I think Chip Kelly's one of the best play callers. But you're going to have plays designed, especially early in the game, to get the ball in his hands, whether they got to motion him over to the slot, throw him a screen pass, a slide or boot, whatever it is, to get the ball in his hands. It doesn't have to be something that has to be down the field, because if it's down the field and the defense has, 2 guys, one short, one deep over the top, that read's not there for him. So the quarterback's going to throw the ball someplace else. So you can design ways for guys to get the ball, which this guy needs to get the ball because he's a great player, but the defense can also determine where the quarterback throws the ball by how they're playing. So you got to take both those things in consideration, and the quarterback can't force it there, because then you're subject to turnovers and bad plays.
He dropped that one early that we saw where he normally goes up and gets it, and then that was basically all we saw.
1 for 3 yards.
Yeah, Will Howard did a good job of not actually forcing the ball to Jeremiah Smith. I feel like he took what the defense was giving him.
And what I'm saying right now, I like what they did. They played nowhere near their A game, mostly because Jeremiah Smith didn't go crazy. But the modern college world that we're in, it is what it is. What is Michigan? Michigan has Larry Ellison right in their back pocket
That's
now?
right.
He's worth how many? $200 billion or something?
Yeah, about that. Probably more, actually, today.
That would be a heartbreaker. I'm not going to say it's going to happen.
He ain't going nowhere.
You think he's going to TTU, man?
That's wide receiver you. way how they've been producing.
Yeah, we know
putting
Brian
them out
Hartline.
lately.
Okay, I agree, but I'm just saying this is the modern world that we're in. Like Ohio State has to think about that. That is a real deal. Back in the day, you never had to think about that. Jeremiah Smith, what he has been able to accomplish this season, nothing short of spectacular. Cannot wait to watch it. Will Howard also. Nobody really gives him much credit. You talked about his decision making and not forcing it anywhere. What have you seen from Will thus far? Obviously, at Kansas State, he was great. I think he was the Big 12 Player of the Year last year. Texas was the champion of the Big 12. They make it to the Cotton Bowl this year in the SEC. It's like Will Howard's a player. So is Riley, though. Riley's like a hooper. It looks like he's like a hooper at quarterback, and his throwing's been getting better. How do you feel about the quarterbacks in this game, and how big of a role do you think they have in the outcome of it all?
Yeah, well, I think Will Howard has done a good job of taking what the defense gives. They got a lot of weapons now. They got two really good runners. They got three really good receivers. They got a good tight end. So he just got to take what the defense gives, and they're going to be able to do a good job. I think Riley Leonard, on the other hand, it's more about him being able to be a runner, having more diversity as a quarterback, which he's done a really good job of. He's a really good athlete. He's a great competitor. And his throwing has gotten better, especially the short throws where they can keep the sticks moving. They haven't made a lot of explosive plays, but that's okay if you're playing keep away.
Yeah, they've stayed on schedule, they say. All right, let's get to the NFL now. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, Jalen Hurts. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation about him. He kind of gets killed on the internet for his passing, but, he had a 44-yard touchdown yesterday running the ball. People kind of ignore that when it comes to him being a quarterback. What do you think about his performance so far, and how do you kind of think he gets better almost as they head to the NFC Championship next week?
Yeah, well, I think he's doing the things they need to do to win. I mean, they're a running football team. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles are. They got Saquon Barkley. They run it. Jalen can run it, which he had a big play last night as a runner. So you got to make people defend that, and then you got to throw the ball effectively enough in play action game. And I think Jalen is a good enough passer to do all those things. I think the one thing, and this is any athletic quarterback and every one of them, and when Jalen was with us, we would have team and 7-on-7. And I would say, you cannot run. You cannot scramble. You have to throw the ball on time. And because these guys are so athletic, they see the rush coming and they think they can scramble and get out of it. And a couple of those sacks that he took last night, he took them because in normal circumstances, no snow, no bad knee, all that, he probably would have been able to escape and get away and make a play. And he's done that so much in his career, it's hard to tell a guy, hey, don't do that. But I was trying to train him to become a better on-time passer, by not allowing him to do it in practice. And I think he improved in that regard. But he's still a great athlete, and those guys are going to make plays, and you can't take that away from him.
Let's talk about a great athlete who has done something that not a lot of rookie quarterbacks have done. Jaden Daniels, obviously, when he's at LSU, you have to play against him. He transfers in there from Arizona State. Everything that happened over there at the end of his run, those dudes got to feel like the dumbest of all time in that locker room. He goes to LSU. You have to play against him a few times. Kirk Herbstreit sat on this particular program when we were at Army-Navy last year, and he said, throughout all these draft classes, this is a good draft class for quarterbacks, and it has been. I mean, Drake May seemingly going to be a guy. Penix, we think, is going to be able to be a guy. We think Caleb has an opportunity. Who knows in Chicago if they get it right. Bo Nix is a guy. And Kirk kind of laid out all those answers, and then he said, Jaden Daniels is the guy, though. Whenever people meet him, when they talk to him, whenever they understand his football knowledge, but also just his sense of calm that he has, and then the moxie and confidence in which he plays with, Kirk was like, he's the guy. This was last year, Army-Navy coming out. I don't think he was the only one, but what do you know from him when watching him at LSU? Obviously very closely, and could you have ever expected this from him coming into the NFL?
Since Joe Burrow, what year that was when they beat us, this was the most dominating player that we played against at Alabama for 4 or 5 years. And I said it last year in the draft, all these pro people call and ask your opinion on people you played against. I said, this guy is the best player we played against for 5 years. And I no disrespect to anybody else, you guys got to look at all the quarterbacks, but I think this guy is a great passer. He's fast as hell. And he can scramble and run and make plays. He's smart. He makes good decisions. I don't see how you can go wrong with this guy. And I actually thought he was the best guy in the draft last year because of the production that he had in college, and he did it for 2 years.
Yeah, but what do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Yeah, what do you know? I
So
mean,
much
you don't know
confidence
ball
in it,
out in
too.
this entire thing. What's that?
There's so much confidence in him, like all the going forward on fourth downs, and as a defensive-minded coach, how much does that change, I guess, game plan-wise, playing against a team like Philly or a team like Buffalo? It seems like the NFL is just kind of like fourth down revolution as a whole. How do you feel that changes for defensive game planning?
Well, that's analytics, and I think one of the big things you have to do as a defensive coach, which we started to do a couple of years ago because Ole Miss would go for it on fourth down, Lane would go for it on fourth down all the time, is defensive players automatically think, all right, we stopped them on 3rd and 5.
Right
We're
here.
off the field.
Right here.
We're out of here.
Right
We're
here.
Here we go.
Yeah,
All right, looking and they're going for it, and your mindset changed.
Yeah.
I mean, you have another 3rd down to play. So we actually started scripting in practice. All right, it's 3rd and 5, incomplete. It's 4th and 5. You got to play. You got to go play. Got to go play. In one game, we actually went 5 for 5 on making stops on 4th down, which typically was not the case because you never practiced it.
Yeah.
And even the defensive coordinators over there got marbles in his mouth, doesn't know what to call because he thinks the punt team's going out there or the punt return team. All right, so all these things kind of work against you because it's not your mindset.
Yeah.
But analytics changed all this. These analytic guys say if you go for it on 4th and 3 on your own 40-yard line, you got a 56% chance to make it. Well, my question was, when my coaches used to bring all that stuff to me, was I'd say, well, what happens the 46% of the
They
time
never
you
ask
don't?
about that. Hey,
They never answer that part.
Yeah, the analytics. I like how you do this with the analytics. Feels like we can make a stat out of anything is what you just did there with the analytics. Going for it on 4th down has been fun. And I don't think we've ever seen a graphic, maybe once, that has said, don't go. The ESPN stats,
Always.
the NBC stats, the Amazon Prime stats, we say go for it. Does that mean it's more than 51% or what is, because that's a lot out of 100 times, 42 times not getting it, even though 58 sounds good. That is a lot of not getting it on 4th down. You talked about stopping it 5 times in one game. I assume you won that game.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that feels like a lot of turnovers there. All right, Coach, I can't wait for College Game Day starting at 5 o'clock, I do believe, Eastern. We'll be right here. Then the National Championship this evening. You've been awesome to watch on TV this year. Hell of a debut into a television career that you had this year. You need to know that.
Well, it's because of you. You have made and taught me how to be able to operate without having anxiety. Because I had anxiety in the beginning.
Why? You're Nick Saban.
No, but I not based on doing this.
Yeah, you are.
No.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
We got 30 seconds. You better say it quick if you're going to be a TV guy.
But you brought this up about Jeremiah Smith going to Michigan or
No.
West
There's a
Virginia or
potential.
whatever. All right, you created that.
No.
He did. You're right. He did.
But all I'm saying, the people out there need to know this model is unsustainable.
Okay.
It's not good for players. I mean, people in Congress, I don't care who has to get off their butt and do something. Players need to get compensated, no doubt, but it has to be done in a way where we, some kind of way have competitive balance.
Yes.
That every school has the same thing. One school can't spend $30 million for players while another school's spending $3 million.
Agreed. You're the one that's going to have to fix it. Hour 1 wrapping up here from the National Championship. We're live at 5 Eastern. We'll see you on the other side.